I was
Okay,
just making sure
perfect.
my everything was turned up.
Yes. All right. Welcome to my podcast. Today's dream, tomorrow's reality. My name is Vickie Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. Well, some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we could be radically different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I'll introduce in just a moment. And before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid, and that is to leave a comment. And remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. This gentleman here, Bob Wisher, did I get it right?
Yeah.
Whew. I
We
was
can cover
sweating it
that
for
in the
a second.
pre-show,
I thought
didn't
I
we?
should have asked again before we got on. But the way I know him is that we both went to the same school for coaching, but we didn't know each other then. We were in different classes, it appears to be, but we just recently our Facebook group that we were all allowed to be in, the alumni group, is changing. So we were switching around and everybody was chatting, and I saw a post that Bob put up. And at the time, my friend Christine and I, we had just started doing a dare to date challenge with several people in this group. And it seemed like he was the perfect person to come in and speak to everybody. And he graciously came in and spoke, and everybody loved all the things that he had to say. And they actually, we had a conversation the very next day to discuss all the amazing things that he had said and how each person took something really great away from it. So I'm really happy to have him here. So, Bob, go ahead and tell him a little bit about you, and then I'll start asking you some questions.
Sure. Sounds good. My name is Bob Wisher. I founded Men Becoming Better Men, as you can see on my sign back there. I am primarily a men's coach. I call myself the relationship engineer. Um, came up with that because I've worked in the corporate automotive industry for almost 30 years now. So I work with engineers, I deal with engineers, I manage engineers, so, kind of play one on TV, I like to say. And so matching that together with one of my extreme passions, which is helping men to become better men. So putting those two things together, I mainly help men build trust, love, and connection back into their relationships so they don't feel so alone.
Beautiful, beautiful. And and it was interesting because when I invited you to come to the podcast, we only had just a couple of men. Well, we had more than two men, but only two of them were active, right? And the rest of them were all women. But it was like we kind of felt like in The Wizard of Oz, all of a sudden you can glimpse the man behind the curtain, you can see him pulling the levers and everything. And it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of getting a back seat um to how men communicate and what you advise them. And so we did ask, what you would say and things so we could kind of understand a little bit more about where men were coming from and what advice you would give them. So that was well received and I loved it. But I'd like to go back because we were talking right before we got on here. You and I both went to the same coaching school, and that we did mastery, we did a lot of the same programs, but we do very different things. And that's one of the things that I've noticed is we all took the same training, and there are a lot of people that took this training, right? But every one of them has a different way of, even if they have a similar niche, they go about it in a different way. So it goes to prove that you can learn the same material and have a totally different program out there. And no better way to see that than you and I are very, very different in what we're doing. And I love that. And so I would love to go back in time. I know you work is it automotive or you're an
Automotive industry.
engineer?
Automotive industry, yeah.
Okay, all right. So What happened in your life that suddenly you said, you know what, I think I want to learn how to be this coach thing?
Well, that's a good part of my story. So actually, I actually wrote an article on it today for on Substack. Um, so about 12-ish years ago, I'm losing track of time already. It's
I know, it's
2025.
crazy.
Uh, went through a pretty difficult divorce. Had been married for almost 20 years, and it just it eroded quickly and went bad fast. And there was a lot of just difficult stuff going on, including losing connection with my kids for almost a year, because just the way things were going, and how things were going. And um, in addition to that, I was in the middle of a job transition, from one company to another, and into a actually, it was my kind of my dream job. It was a promotion, to a director level that I had been trying to achieve for probably the previous 10 years, and it wasn't going well. Um, Probably a lot to do with the fact that what was going on at home.
Hmm.
And then also ended up that company that I was at. Uh, I found out after I'd been there for almost a year that it was on the sales block. They were trying to make it look better so they could, kind of build it up and then sell it off.
Pad the room, so to speak.
Yep, so to speak. Yep. So just a whole lot of bad things in my life going on, and I just that was between all of that, and just the kind of the just all of those things that were underneath the surface for me. Those things that I know you've learned what they are, as we go back and work with people and coach them in the depths of their childhood traumas and things like that. A lot of those things were still sitting there on the surface because none of them had healed. I mean, it's a big portion of the reason why my first marriage failed was all of those things were still there.
Right.
All of that stuff was going on, the job, the career, everything. And one day I was driving down the street and I was like, you know what? I wonder what would really matter if I just drove in oncoming traffic. And that was the moment I was like, oh, I really need to do something different because things are not going well. And
Yeah.
I felt like there was still a lot of unfinished business for me in my life. I was about 45 at the time, and I was like, this can't be it. I mean, my kids were going off to college. My marriage was gone. I'm by myself. I got nothing to do. I'm sitting around doing a lot of nothing. And I started seeing ads. Obviously, you know how Facebook likes to listen to us, right? I'd
Right.
start seeing ads on Facebook for men's coaching. And I was like, you know what? I've seen this too many times. I'm feeling so low. There, the packaging looks good and shiny. So what the heck? Let's try it. And so I jumped in, and before I even got to the end of that first consultation call, I was like, I hope this doesn't cost $1 million because I want to do this really bad because I need this. I need this change in my life. And we called it in HCI, it was the record scratch, right? Where the needle runs
Yep.
across the record. There's that stop moment, like, oh my God, I need this. And I jumped in. I spent 6 months with my first coach, and my life completely changed
So
from
what
in
happened to
every
that?
way,
Like
shape, and form.
you had a coach, right?
Mhm.
And so at some point you decided you wanted to become a coach.
Yeah, actually, it was probably a month or two, maybe three into that process. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this is so awesome. And again, part of what my issue was, I was searching for I mean, I had been my purpose, life's purpose to that point had been raise my family.
Yeah.
Kids are off to college, ex-wife's in the rearview, and
Now what?
what's my purpose?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, I had coached both of my kids through several sports, my son a bunch in baseball. And when I made the connection between what I was doing with my coach and how he was, building me up and, coaching me, I thought back to when my son was 12, I would do at the end of each baseball practice, I would do mindset coaching with these 12-year-old kids. You know, use if you get out 7 out of 10 times in baseball, you're really, really good.
Hmm.
Stuff like that. And it all connected. And that made me jump into, actually, that's when I looked into the coaching education program that we joined. And that was the beginning of a lot of just amazing conversations that I've had, people that I've helped. My current client, actually, one of the things we worked on right out of the gate, the reason he came to me is because his marriage was failing, and within 5 or 6 sessions, his wife has pulled the divorce off the table, and they're back into reconciliation mode and moving forward, and we're going to keep building them up to make sure he's got a good foundation and robust, and he knows what he wants and how to work with her and treat her and all that stuff. And it's just been an amazing to be able to. I love the analogy of the pebble in the pond, right, where
Hmm.
you're throwing yourself into a pond, and all the ripple effects you'll never see that last ripple
Yeah,
when
yeah,
that wave hits the shore. But all of those things that happen because you inserted yourself into a situation, I just love the mindset of that, and how that relationship that I helped repair can influence their kids and their kids' kids and their friends and their relatives and God
yeah,
knows who else. So it's such an amazing experience to be able to do this, and
yeah.
I wouldn't change it for the world.
So did the coach that you hired, did they go to the same school?
No, no,
No? Okay. I was
no.
just curious
And
about that.
so,
Because what I
no, it's
did,
just
I
separate.
didn't even get the coaching. What I did was I knew because for me, I had started looking at it because I'd been a yo-yo dieter my whole life, and I was looking to
Mm,
do something about my weight and
yeah,
how I perceived myself. And so I saw a little tagline about habit change, and I thought that's what I need. That's really what I need. So I looked it up, and I started to hire a coach, and I thought, wait a minute, now I know me. I'll go all in if I'm learning and I've paid all this money and I've signed up for a year. That I'll stick with. Would I stick with the other one? I just didn't, at that point, I didn't trust myself to do it, you know?
yeah. A
And
lot of people
so,
don't.
yeah, so I said, okay, I think I'll become a coach. And if the only person I help is me, that'll be money well worth spent. But I saw early on how much difference it was making in me. But I was really blown away with it wasn't like we started out with saying, here's your diet, here's this, which was what I was accustomed to, right?
Hmm.
And so um, the thing that I love about being a coach is that you have so many tools in your toolbox that no matter what shows up ahead of you, because people can surprise you sometimes, even though they come to you for this thing, usually whatever it is they're coming for you is not the thing that they're really needing to
Hmm.
work on. And but it's like you have that conversation, and then suddenly your mind just starts going through, ooh, this is what I need to do. This will work. This will work. This will help them. And um, it just it just works itself through the whole process.
Yep.
And I know I've had clients that had tremendous changes in their world. And they'll even say, well, I came to her for this, but what I got was this. And that was so much better.
Yeah,
And
right.
so coaching is amazing. And it sounds like you do the same thing. One of the things that you did when you came live in the Dare to Date challenge with us was that it was women because Oswald, the guy in the group that was coming that night, he didn't come till later. But the thing that everybody loved was that you were able to give them like ideas of things to ask someone on that first meeting, if they were meeting someone for the first time, that would help them not to just waste time and play that little fluff stuff that we tend to play, you know.
Yeah.
And I know that that's outside what you normally do, but I thought it was brilliant. And it helped me and it helped everybody in the group. So I'm sure you have what is it Stacy that says it? It's a writer downer.
Yeah.
I bet you have a lot of those writer downers in the whole
Wow.
thing.
I don't know. So sometimes things just pop out of my
Yeah,
head, and
yeah, I
I
know.
probably should write them down myself.
Well, you can take some of your videos that you do and you can go back and you can throw it into Descript or something and say, give me the highlights.
Yeah, right.
So, um, as you've gone through coaching school, because it's not like you go in and in 3 months, like some of these classes that people take, it's like a long
Mm,
weekend, it's like 90 days. I mean, it's a lengthy stuff. You went into mastery the same as I did,
yeah,
and that one was really intense.
yeah.
Um, that's when I got really, really um, in love with hypnosis because there's so much of hypnosis and NLP and EFT and all this, I mean, amazing things in there that so when we sit down with someone as a coach, we've just got this, it's almost like a room full of tricks, or not really
Hmm.
tricks, but of ways to help
Yes.
you to get outside of yourself. So if you could look at all the things that you do with people with the men, because you primarily work with men,
Hmm.
um, is there something that you have pulled out of your toolbox more often with this kind of stuff than others?
Mm. The one tool I really love, and you should probably remember this one, is the family dinner table. That's
Yes.
one of my favorite exercises to do with people. It's
Okay.
basically for the audience's sake, so we're not being so completely cryptic. It's basically as you look back at a family meal when you're very young, as early as you can remember, basically, and what your mom and or dad were doing, and you maybe siblings or family dog or cat or whatever. What's going on at the family dinner table? And we walk through some questions, and it's the outcome ends up being extremely funny, but also extremely poignant to kind of how you are within yourself
Mm-hmm.
as you've learned to be over time. So it's a really cool exercise. I've had a lot of people get to the end of that and have some really profound things that they've learned from that exercise.
Beautiful, beautiful. I do love that one. I tend to do that one, but more often I'll do the swish pattern.
Yeah,
Yeah, yes, I really.
I never really resonated with that one.
No, no. Let's see.
Uh,
Maybe it's because I'm a hypnotist or something, because it's that
maybe.
visual, you know.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love it. Um, so let's go back to when you were really young.
Uh-oh.
What got you into doing? So are what do you do in the automotive? Didn't you say you said automotive? Why am I drawing a blank here?
Oh, that's good. I'm a program manager, is what they call me. I basically oversee a project from beginning to end,
Okay.
oversee make sure the engineers are doing what they need to do on time, the production folks are doing what they need to do on time, and I've basically managed that project from beginning to end
Okay.
for an automotive, a piece of a car, and then we sell those pieces of the car to the automotive company, the
Oh, okay.
Fords,
I
the
get it.
GMs, the Hondas, Toyotas, wherever.
So it has to be pretty precise,
Oh,
right?
absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes. So when you were really young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Firefighter, actually.
Did you
Yeah,
really?
yeah. And that's part of you said you wanted me to tell stories, so here's another one. I
Okay.
went to a men's retreat back in actually back in 2019. 2019 was a big year for me. Um, and one of the things that during an exercise, which unfortunately I can't tell you all the details of it because it's one of those confidentiality things, but it was an exercise where basically I was supporting another man, and he was great. He was grieving, going through some heavy emotional situations, and I was just praying over him. Basically, I had my hand on him, I was praying for him, giving him strength, and all that. And basically, in that moment, um, I felt like the Spirit was telling me that you are meant to be here. You're meant to be here in this moment. You are meant to help heal men. And so, when you think back to wanting to be a firefighter, first responder when I was little, kind of you can see the parallel, right? You can see
Hmm.
the parallel to where I'm at now, and my desire and my general want to help mainly men, because I am one. I have a lot of significant traumas in my life, and I don't want other men to have to continue to deal, because we all deal with our stuff, right? But to have to continually deal with that over and over and over again, like I said, I think a lot of that, my past history was really what deteriorated my marriage, my first marriage in the first place. And um, I just hate to know that there's other men out there going through that, and then considering, taking their own lives, because obviously men do it way more than women. What did I saw another stat the other day, like 70%
Wow.
of suicides are men. And it's just,
Well,
I've known 4 or 5 myself, and
wow.
I don't want to hear another one.
Right, right. Well, unfortunately, especially, I think it's changing now, but it used to be that men weren't supposed to be emotional.
Mhm.
Men weren't supposed to say anything about their feelings. They were supposed to bury it down, and they were supposed to be the provider. They were supposed to just suck it up. I remember when my son was young, his father, my husband, he said, what was it? He was upset. My son was upset about something, and he said, "Men don't cry. Just suck it up. Go for a walk. Go run around the building. Go do something to get that out." And my husband actually ended up passing away from a heart attack. So maybe
Mhm.
if he had had an outlet,
Yep.
then that wouldn't have happened to him.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
men, women are taught to be emotional, and sometimes we're chastised for being emotional, and
Yeah,
men are taught not to. So there's a double-edged sword on all of it, right?
absolutely. And
So it's amazing.
yeah, and definitely your point is probably well founded with your husband. Um, we hold all that inside,
Hmm.
and
It
where it
has nowhere to
goes.
go.
Well, where it goes, it just stays right here,
Yeah,
and we ruminate about it day after day, hour after hour, year after year. But it doesn't. There's nowhere for it to go.
yeah.
And all it does, as it continues to congest up in our headspace, it doesn't allow us to the freedom of everything else that's around us. So one of the newest tools I've added to my toolbox actually is helping men get out of that headspace and get that feeling down into our bodies, which sounds woo woo, right? Guys are like, oh, emotions and feelings. We're not supposed to. You know what, guys? Whatever you've learned to this point is crap. Because like Vickie said, you take on that stress for so long, for so many years, you're going to end up with heart failure. I was actually, I didn't mention it earlier in the story. I was battling depression during that whole divorce situation too. And what I learned during that time is depression is caused by needing to be too strong for too long.
Hmm.
And again, not being able to express those things, get out of your head, get into your body. And I'm not talking about getting into your body to go and be emotional like women. I'm talking about just getting it out of your head into your body so it has somewhere to dissipate to. You can dissipate it out, whether it's through your breath or through exercise or through whatever else, because we got to have a place for that stuff to go, or it builds up and guys end up taking their own lives. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a, like you said, it's a double-edged sword if we don't deal with it.
Yeah. One of my favorite books is, and I can't remember the author, but it's Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And no truer words to me were ever spoken,
Yeah.
because when you bury something, you can never get past it. It's always there. Even if you can get past it for a while, it's gonna rear its ugly head at some point. That's why some relationships become this big battleground, because they both got this stuff and they're triggering each other. And when the trigger happens, depending on how you were raised and how you learn to deal with that stuff, is how you react.
Yeah.
So it could be, so that's why some people hit, some people scream and yell, and some people retreat. It's just figuring all of that out. And so relationships can be really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
So for our listeners that maybe you work primarily with men that are married and relationships to have better relationships, or do you work more with men that are considering a relationship?
It's just really it's relationships in general. Really,
Okay,
it's
okay.
if you're struggling in your marriage, I got tools for that. If you're wanting to date and get back into the market, or you're just getting into the market, I got tools for that. And also, there's the relationship with yourself. That's
Yeah.
another huge piece of what I enjoy doing, because a lot of us men, we're not taught to really be in touch with ourselves and understand that, you talk about self-love, and that's one of the things that saved me a, a handful of years ago. Before I got married the second time, I had gone through another kind of a lull in my life, and it was actually right just before I got it into the coaching thing too, was to get enough of a understanding of where I was to um, that I didn't truly love myself enough, or wasn't caring for myself in the ways that I needed to care for myself. Um, the big eye opener.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing book called Love. It's actually called Love Yourself by
Okay.
Kamal Ravikant. It was a life changer.
Okay. Yeah. Well, um, not to say that it's a competition, but women have the same issue, right? With
Yeah.
loving
Oh yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
especially their bodies. They
Yeah.
really, really have a hard time with loving their bodies. They're too quick to find the flaws, and there are people that are very quick to tell them about the flaws.
Yeah.
Um, so women have a hard time with that too. So you put two people that have a hard time with that, and you're not doing real well.
Yeah, hurt people is
That's
one of
right.
one
That's
of the
right.
other ones.
So what would you suggest for the men that are listening? If they're in a place where they're wanting to date, but they've just been kind of not really, maybe it's that not that they're not wanting to date, that they're finally getting serious about it possibly being something instead of just a date.
You
Does that make
mean like
sense?
they're seeing someone and want to take it further?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
That's so much easier way
well,
to say it. So go
yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the $100,000 question, right? Is
Yeah.
how do you know she's the one? Couple of things that I would look for is in knowing that she's the one, is does she support you no matter what? One of the reasons I got married a second time was because my wife supports everything I do all the time. She doesn't, she may question for logic's sake, and is this the right thing kind of sake, but once she's on board, she's 100% behind me. I mean, I do probably 3 or 4 days a week. I'm off doing something with men, and I've never heard her complain once that, hey, you don't spend enough time with me because you're spending time building your business and taking care of these men. She's fully supportive of it, and to have a woman in my life that can do that and be okay with it, which is 180 degrees opposite of my first marriage, um, where I was actually guilted for going play softball one night a week and having a beer with the guys after. So completely different situations. Um, a second thing would be that, obviously, like as we're talking about personal growth and personal development, and this goes for both. I think I told you this the other night in the podcast, or the group. Um, make sure the other person's into personal development. They've got to be, and they've got to be dedicated to it. They've got to. I call it evidence. Don't just take somebody's word that, yeah, oh yeah, I read self-help books or whatever. I listen to the podcasts. If they have a bookshelf that's something like, I don't know if you can see it, if they have a bookshelf like that with a bunch of personal development books and maybe an Audible or Spotify account that has a lot of personal development books, I'd say that's a good sign because, like I said, hurt people. And what I'm finding in almost every conversation I have, whether it's a man or a woman, we have all got so much baggage from our past. And it's these generational things that keep getting piled on top, right? We do it to our kids, our parents did it to us, our grandparents did it to them. It's all the same. And it seems to be getting harder and harder to where people can't even connect and communicate. So be able to have that continual growth mindset, that wanting to learn all the time, very important for people in a relationship. Because if you're both learning and growing, here's how I like to demonstrate it. When you're both learning and growing, you're elevating this way, you're actually getting closer to each other. Instead
Hmm.
of if one of you is going this way and one of you are going this way, you're never going to hit that intersection.
Yeah.
But if you're both growing, you're going to intersect and come together. Um, and a third thing, how do you know if she's the one? Um, oh, okay, I can't believe this didn't come to me right away. Libido wise. And
Hmm.
I swear, I think that we should have passed a law in the world, United States, the world, whatever, and you should have to put on your forehead if you're an H for high libido or an L for low libido. Because when you take a high and low libido person and you put them together, you're constantly just going to
Somebody's
do
gonna be
this.
upset.
Somebody's going to be mad all the
Yeah.
time. And if you get two low libido people, great. You can just go coexist and be roommates together and never have sex. Or you could be two high libido people and you can, rabbit away,
Yes.
right? I mean, just make sure and again, find evidence because my first marriage, I thought things were okay until they weren't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
um,
the thing about that though is that can change over time,
that's true.
you know? So there's things that you can do in a relationship to keep that. So wherever you are in that spectrum, you can keep it where it's more compatible. Um, because if you just kind of leave things to chance, things usually don't go that well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to get you go on.
Oh,
I was going too far too fast there.
okay. So, what about these gentlemen that are already in a marriage and maybe they're in a place where maybe it's not so that they're about to do the divorce papers, but most people, I think, can feel that things aren't right. Now, it
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean the other person's stepping out or anything like that. It just means that you felt connection and now you feel like you're not connected. I will
yeah,
say, I've been married twice. And some of the loneliest times in my life was when I was married. Not
yeah,
being alone, not being married isn't really lonely, but being in a marriage where you can't connect, that's lonely as hell.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and the first one, and it may sound cliche because I would expect everybody should know this by now, but it's love languages.
Yeah.
Love languages is the key to for me. It's the key to my marriage now. I
Hmm.
know my wife's love language. Actually, she has a couple of them, so it makes it kind of easy. But words of affirmation is by far her number one. And all I got to do is fill her with words of affirmation every day. Now, wake up in the morning, say, "Good morning, beautiful. How are you?" I don't have to say anything to her the rest of the day, and I'm good. And I know I'm good because I've checked her box for the day, and she knows how I feel
So
about
what's
her,
her
and
other
everything's
love
great.
language?
Um, she's also quality time.
Okay.
So even if we're just sitting on the couch watching TV, I'm I'm
Hmm.
I'm making points. Um, and then the third, probably physical touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like there's a lot of smacking on the butt as we walk by each other in the kitchen kind of stuff. So that's
Yeah.
that's always fun and
So
it
what's your
gets
love
gets
language
everybody
then?
going. By far, physical touch, number one,
Okay.
and that's why I know for my ex, we were miles apart on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's definitely the biggest thing for, and I know men that they when I talk about that, they start, I can hear the eye rolls, but it matters.
Hmm.
And the biggest reason it matters is because if I'm physical touch, and this is the actually the exact mistake I made, one of the mistakes I made in my first marriage. My ex-wife was, we were on opposite ends of the spectrum for physical touch. But because mine was physical touch, I was always trying to put my love language on her, which was repulsive to her and just pushed us apart. So if you're not in sync,
Yeah. So do you know what
eh,
her love language was?
um, probably quality time and maybe acts of service. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know the love languages before.
Right,
So
right, right.
and actually the first time I've been asked that question. So um, I definitely was not doing them, whatever it was,
Yeah, yeah,
because
because I was going to
I was
say a
not
moment
filling her cup.
ago, however we're acting toward the person in our life, that is usually our love language, not theirs.
Yeah.
And so, and in a relationship, a lot of times you can still make it work as long as you're aware of what it is and they're
Mhm.
aware that yours is different from theirs,
Yeah.
and then you can share with one another. But
Yeah. You
it
got to
can
be on the
get
same page.
yeah, it can get really tricky when all you're doing is what you want. And that, they'll say, well, why don't they do this? I want them to. And it's like, well, that doesn't, it's not the top of their mind.
Yeah. Exactly.
I studied the love languages quite a long time ago because, like I said, I've been married twice. So it was like something's got to give.
Something's wrong.
Something's, and I'm kind of in both of them. So some of it had to be me.
Yeah.
And I think, um, being able to be in a relationship and take ownership of your place in all the stuff, right? Because typically most people, I can't say everybody, but most people start blaming the other person because they're not
Mhm.
reacting the way they want them to.
Yeah.
And I'll just share real quick. I had a client that she was going through, she was married and she was having a bit of a hard time with her spouse. They were going to a marriage counselor. And this marriage counselor, instead of, talking about the love languages and doing all of that stuff, they were giving them code words for when your partner says something that makes you feel this way, here's the code word. And and it was like they went once a week, and after a while I said, "What in the heck?" I said, "Do you have a bulletin board on the wall with all the code words, what they are? How do you keep track?" I was just the most ludicrous thing I'd heard, but I couldn't say that's stupid. But I did say, how do you keep track of it? Shouldn't
Yeah.
a relationship be easier than this?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and it came down to with her was that she didn't like herself very much. In the
Hmm.
beginning, she couldn't even look at herself in the mirror and say, I love you. She
Yeah.
couldn't do it at all. And she was one of those that when we finished working together, she said, well, I came to Vickie for weight loss. But I ended up,
Mm.
the weight that I lost was a marriage that did not serve me. That
Mm.
was her first big loss. Weight loss was that.
Hmm.
And she ended up as we worked together, she could look at herself in the mirror and say, I love you. She started loving who she was exactly as she was working toward getting to the place where she wanted to be.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't take any shit anymore. And she finally realized that this counselor was just placating them and taking their money because nothing was being resolved. Nothing.
Yeah. And that's I don't, I try not to bag too much on that, our fellow counselors in professionalism,
And I know some of
but
them are probably pretty good, but
yeah.
this one, it was
Yeah.
like, what the heck?
Yeah. But that's one of the things that I've found too with them is they keep they keep giving you just enough over time to keep you coming back, but they'll never give you everything you want.
Yeah,
Whereas coaching, if you tell me you want to work together for 12 weeks on a problem, I'm going to help you solve that problem in 12 weeks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful. I love that. So I'm trying to look, I got this light up here. So we're getting close to time. Um, so do you have any last piece of wise Bob wisdom that you want to
Mm.
handout?
Um, well, I kind of expand on what I said a little bit earlier about men being in their heads. Um, one of the things I'm finding most important lately here is being able to get out of our heads. Excuse me, get into our bodies because that's where our strength and our wisdom are. And if you have roadblocks, if you have um, obstacles, things you're trying to get through or can't understand why you can't get around them, is probably because you're not spending enough time in your body versus in your head. You're trying to solve a puzzle with your brain instead of the intuition of your body. And basically every experience we've ever had lives in our body. Um, and to be able to transition out of the head and into the body makes it a lot easier to solve problems, get around obstacles, make plans, put a roadmap together, whatever the case may be. So um, if you haven't tried that, or if it's foreign to you, if you haven't done it before, I highly encourage you to seek out somebody that can do that kind of exercise with you and get you out of your head and into your body, and you will be amazed at the types of things that you can accomplish.
Yeah. So how would they reach out to you? And I know I'll put your information in the show notes, but if you want to tell them.
Yeah, probably easiest way is either through my website, which is www.menbecomingbettermen.com, or either on Instagram or Substack as I go by the relationship engineer on both of those, so they
All
can look
right.
me up that way.
Beautiful. So, everybody that's watching and listening, definitely check out Bob's website. And then anybody that is wanting to get a little bit more clarity on what I do with everyone, because I'm not just a podcaster, I am a life transformational coach and a hypnotist, and I love every minute of it. I have programs, I have books, I have a lot. So, I will have all my information in the show notes. And you can check me out on Linktree, link dot tr, no, linktr.ee / Vickie Poole. I always forget where the dot goes. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you next time. Mwah.